Happy Pride Month! If you don't know me, I'm Bella and I'm an alcoholic and I make 3D VTubers and assets, so that's what I'm making today. I originally wasn't very prepared for this. I didn't know exactly what I was going to make that would be unique, and I'm not saying that pride flags aren't unique, but pride is more of like the symbolism and the colors than any real like specific object. So it was a little bit difficult to brainstorm. So I went with the flags as something that is simple, versatile, and easy to use. Because I know I'm going to be making a lot of these, spoiler alert, I have made way more than I intended to because I got carried away. I don't start off right away by making the first flag. I make sure to set up an object that is about as ready as it can be before I'm going to duplicate it and modify it to make all of the flags from this one object. As with all of my assets, I keep them low poly. I feel like VTubers have enough programs open while they stream or record content, and I'm not trying to overload their PC anymore. A simple cube stretched vertically forms a flagpole, and I round out the top and the bottom a little bit so that way it's not quite as harsh. The main flag body, again just another cube squished into shape, and I bevel the outside edge just a little bit to round it out and make it softer. So now I've got my base template done, I can finally duplicate it for the first flag, which will be the generic rainbow pride flag. I make 5 loop cuts for the 6 stripes, and each strip of the flag I assign that to a simple, very simple material. And that's it for this portion. But now I'm just working on making throwable assets. So I made the rainbow pride flag, the POC pride flag, the inclusive pride flag, and I'm just going to stop right here and say this one was an absolute mess, so ignore how I got the triangle stripes in there for now. I'm trying to do things very mathematically, if you will, but the best way that I found to do this was to just take the flag with the horizontal stripes, fumble around for 10 minutes trying to get nice little triangle shapes, then give up and add in a new cube rotated 45 degrees. This acts as my guide to outline the triangle sections, and then I can fill in the faces and delete the unnecessary bits. And then I can merge that with the rest of the flag. I miscounted and forgot a stripe, so to condense the shape I put my cursor on the leftmost point of the flag, and then I scaled it with the 3D cursor as the pivot point. And because I'm not working with textures here and I just want to use geometry and materials, I add in a circle, a very low poly circle, for the intersects part of the flag, and that just sits on top. I'm glad the most complicated flag is out of the way early, time to continue on with some simple ones. The transgender flag, pansexual flag, bisexual, non-binary, asexual, lesbian, intersex, gay, aromantic, and gender fluid. And these are just a quick little preview. This is what we're working with so far, but throwables, I don't want to say boring, but they're boring, and I had an even better idea. I wanted to try out using them as props as well, which could be used in Vnyan. The model of the throwables is too low poly to work with how I want it to, so I go in and edit the meshes to have more vertical loop cuts. Why? Because I am going to rig them! Now, I'm going to be the first to say that the inclusive pride flag, the intersex flag, because they've got the extra circle just sitting on top, they don't work the best, and I was debating on whether or not I would actually show them, but because of how they are made as different pieces rather than as a texture, there's some slight clipping issues with the movement. The armature itself is very simple, a root bone for the pole of the flag and the base bit of the flag that connects to the pole, and then 3 bones along the length of the flag that will control the movement. Parent the mesh to the rig, then I personally, this is just how I like to do it, I just select the part of the mesh in blocks and assign to each of the bones, and then run a smoothing operation over after that's all done. I'm not going over the Unity part too much, but I just need to add in spring bones in the UniVRM package to the flag part and adjust it so that way it's nice and flowy when it moves, and export it as a Vnyan prop. And now to test it out, I can position where I want it to in Vnyan. I chose Sophie here to hold onto it for me, but now that I know it works how I want it to, time to repeat for all of the other flags that I've made so far. At this point, I had posted a shorts video to YouTube and to TikTok, and I got a lot of suggestions on different flags to add, which is great. I got a little distracted and I made a lot of them, And this time I'm making the flag, exporting the throwable, adding in the actual loops, transferring the weights from another flag as just a guide, and exporting the rigged prop model. So that means I have two different models, the original minimal poly flag that is used for the throwable, and the one with the extra loops for the prop. Both versions are still pretty low poly, and I'm sure it probably wouldn't have made much of a difference in performance, but I'm still just keeping things down and as simple as possible where I can. In the second batch of flags, we have the unlabeled flag, agender, the original Gilbert Baker Pride flag with the pink and the teal stripes, omnisexual, agosexual, and agoromantic. Someone suggested the poly flag, and I assumed it meant polyamorous, but I was like, well, let's just go a step further and do all of the poly flags. So there's polysexual, polyamorous, and polygender. The polyamorous flag is another one that I will admit doesn't always flow so smoothly with the additional heart piece on top. I chose this flag though, as from what I was reading, the flag that I was most familiar with was a little bit outdated, and so people in the community voted to have a new flag, and I do feel like it captures the spirit of the original flag in a newer and softer way. Again, I'm trying to stay more mathematical with the design of them, so the white triangle sits on the 1/3 line, both horizontally and vertically, and that point is achieved by using loop cuts as a guide. I'm gonna be honest, I just eyeballed all the colours in all of these flags. I could have downloaded the images and loaded them in and colour pick from. I just felt like that would have taken more time, and I feel like I'm pretty accurate when I'm colour picking. Also a note on the colours, I'm trying to reuse colours as much as I can so I don't have duplicate materials. Though of course, if there's a flag with a colour that just isn't quite right, I will make a new colour for it so that it matches as perfectly as possible. Then we've got the request for demisexual. Of course, I had to do demi-romantic as well, and continuing on the demi-wagon, someone else suggested demi-flux. And they've got a lot more than they bargained for, because not only did I do demi-flux, there's also a demi-fluid flag, demi-boy, and demi-girl. The demi-fluid flag has a gradient to it, which isn't really possible with the way that I'm making these with the solid materials, so I make a simple gradient texture so I can unwrap the stripe of the flag along it to get the gradient. Super simple stuff. Next up on the suggestions is Ace Flux, and then I also did the Arrow Flux to go with it. But I think now that is all of them. At this point, I decided to look into Warudo, something I've always been meaning to do, but I just never did up until now. Setting up the prop takes a little bit more work than converting to Vnyan or for Vtuber Plus, but I am in love with Warudo. I'll go more in depth with another video about it, but the props look so good here. I will say that in comparison to Vnyan, it's a lot easier to position the props and there's a lot more control over it. I may or may not be adding in more flags. If there is anything that you really want to see, leave a comment. I don't want anyone to feel left out, but understand that I can only do so many and there is so many flags out there. If you use them in your streams, in your videos, in content, whatever, feel free to tag me. I love to see what you make. And that goes for any of my assets. They're listed on Ko-Fi as they are a free download. I do that with all of my prize stuff, it's always free. There's a separate listing for the props and for the throwables, though if you're using them for the Warudo program, it's the same file for both throwables and the props, just a different setup. I hope you get some use out of them, and that's it from me, and I'll see you in the next one.